There I was, sitting in a dimly lit hospital cafeteria in the late 70s, just trying to get a quick bite of spaghetti between rounds. I was a young psychiatric resident back then, still trying to make sense of the chaotic world of emergency medicine. Suddenly, my pager starts buzzing like crazy. In the rush to get up, my fork slipped, and a massive glob of bright red tomato sauce landed right on my silk tie. Panic mode. I tried to wipe it off, but it just smeared into this unmistakable, ugly red stain. Since I didn't have time to change, I just threw my white lab coat over it, buttoned it up tight so no one could see the mess, and ran down to the ER. That moment, that tiny, embarrassing accident with a plate of pasta was about to shatter everything I thought I knew about science, the human brain, and what actually happens when we die. Welcome to Night Question. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and join our community where we peel back the layers of the world's most profound mysteries. Trust me, you don't want to miss where this story goes. When Dr. Bruce Greyson, who is now an emeritus professor of psychiatry and neurobehavioral sciences at the University of Virginia, first started looking into near-death experiences, or NDEs, in the late 1970s, he was a total skeptic. He assumed there had to be a simple, physical explanation. You know the drill. Maybe the brain is just running low on oxygen. Or maybe the heavy meds the doctors are pumping into the patient are causing some sort of wild hallucination. He expected to find a biological glitch in the system. But here's the kicker. After 4 decades of gathering data, those simple explanations just don't hold up. The math doesn't add up. The data doesn't support the dying brain theory. In fact, what people report during these moments seems to defy the laws of physics as we know them. Back in the day, when Dr. Greyson and his colleagues would present this research at medical conferences, the room would go dead silent. It was that awkward, polite silence where you can practically hear the other doctors thinking, okay, this guy has lost it. But fast forward to the 21st century, it's a totally different story. Now, when he gives a talk, it's rare for a group of doctors not to stand up and say, hey, let me tell you what happened in my operating room last week. It's become widely accepted that these experiences are real, they are common, and they change people forever. The debate isn't about if they happen anymore, it's about why. Dr. Greyson describes NDEs as these incredibly deep, subjective experiences that happen when someone is either inches away from death or, in many cases, has already been declared clinically dead. We're talking about people who have no pulse and no measurable brain activity, and yet they report this vivid checklist of impossible events. The sensation of floating out of their physical body, watching the doctors work from the ceiling, or even seeing a 360-degree review of their entire life in a matter of seconds. They talk about meeting entities, beings that aren't physically there, and eventually reaching a point of no return, a border they know they can't cross if they want to come back. And when they do come back, they aren't the same person anymore. Their values, their fears, their entire personality shifts overnight. Now, let's go back to that spaghetti stain on the tie. That night in the ER, Dr. Greyson was called to see a patient named Holly, who had taken a massive overdose. She was completely unconscious, out cold. He couldn't get a word out of her. Her roommate was waiting in a separate room down the hall, so Greyson went there to get some background info. It was a hot, muggy night. Remember, this was the 70s, no air conditioning, so he unbuttoned his lab coat for about 10 minutes while he talked to the roommate. That's the only time that stained tie was visible. He then buttoned the coat back up, went back to check on Holly, who was still unresponsive, and went home. The next morning, when Holly finally woke up, Greyson went in to introduce himself. She stopped him mid-sentence. I know who you are, she said. I remember you from last night. Greyson was baffled. He told her, that's impossible. You were out cold when I saw you. She looked him dead in the eye and said, not in my room. I saw you talking to my roommate at the end of the hall. Here's the part that still gives people chills. She proceeded to describe the conversation they had, exactly where they were sitting, and then she dropped the bomb. And you were wearing a striped tie with a big red stain on it. That moment changed everything for Dr. Grayson. As a scientist, he couldn't just brush that off. There was no logical way she could have known about that stain. She hadn't seen her roommate, and no one else had seen the tie. Most people would run away from something that breaks their worldview, but true scientists run toward it. Over the years, he's collected over 1,000 cases, and the stories from random people on the street are identical to the ones he hears from patients in the hospital. It challenges the very foundation of modern neuroscience. Most of us are taught that the mind is just what the brain does. Basically, your brain is the computer hardware, and your thoughts are the software. But how do you explain complex, vivid memories and high-level consciousness when the hardware is literally turned off? During a cardiac arrest, the brain isn't capable of creating 4K high-definition memories. Yet, that's exactly what these people report. They say their senses become hyper-tuned. They hear sounds they've never heard on Earth and see colors that don't even exist in our visible spectrum. When they try to describe it, they struggle. One person told Dr. Grayson, "It's like trying to draw a smell with a crayon." It's just not the right tool for the job. They insist that the experience feels more real than reality itself. Like this world we're in right now is just a blurry shadow compared to what's on the other side. And this isn't some modern fad. We see these exact same stories across all of human history. Pliny the Elder wrote about a similar case in ancient Rome in the 1st century. We see it in Western Europe, the Middle East, Asia, from Hindu and Buddhist cultures to the indigenous tribes of Australia and Native American communities. The skeleton of the story is always the same. The only thing that changes is the cultural paint we put on it. For example, people all over the world report meeting a being of light, a presence that radiates unconditional, overwhelming love. If you're in the US, you might call that being God or Jesus. If you're from a different culture, you'll use different names, but the feeling of that warmth and that light is universal. It doesn't matter what language you speak or what century you live in, the light feels the same. At the end of the day, these people come back with a new perspective on what makes life worth living. They talk about a sense of connectedness. They realize that every action they take ripples out and affects everyone else. Dr. Grayson thinks the reason we're also obsessed with these stories is because they offer hope. They suggest that maybe, just maybe, our essence, our soul, survives the death of the body. But he also points out something profound. The most important part isn't what NDEs tell us about death. It's what they tell us about this life, right now. How we treat people, how we find purpose, and how we spend our limited time in these physical bodies. It makes you think, doesn't it? If the brain isn't the whole story, then what are we, really? If you found this as fascinating as I did, make sure to leave a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts, or if you've ever had an experience that science just couldn't explain. Don't forget to like this video. It really helps the channel grow. And as always, stay curious. This is Night Question, and I'll see you in the next one. Good night.